Peace and respect to you all. Welcome to Demolish Doctrine, the beginning of the end of religion remote show. I'm on a job site, so that's why my background is not my normal background. I don't even have a green screen. Peace and respect. Welcome, Mac, also Steve. Thank you very much for coming by, guys.
Hey, it's my pleasure to be here and awake.
Not while I'm drinking coffee. Can't tell jokes while the person is consuming liquids. It could kill them.
That's actually the best time because I've made people shoot liquid out of their nose.
Isn't that the funniest? That's the greatest. You know you really got them when that happened.
I was in grade 7 when, because Catholics have such a terrible history with their treatment of Jews, they tried to educate us on Jews. And, in the sense of, this is, we're related religiously and that sort of thing. And be nice to them. Let's understand. And here we'll do one of these Passover things in grade 7. And for some reason, I was put on the table in front of the class. We were using grape juice instead of wine. And someone, as I was sipping the grape juice, someone said one of the most stupid things I'd ever heard in my life, and I wish to God I could remember what it was, but it triggered me laughing as I had just swallowed some grape juice, and then grape juice shot out of both nostrils like twin laser beams. And in front of the entire class, of course.
And this is why you're a comedian today.
Well, I've never actually done any stand-up comedy. I've done some humor writing over the years.
That's a comedian.
Yeah, I guess so. But I do what I can. And it's also my way of making my own fun, because my life is actually pretty bleak. And so I use my sense of humor to sustain myself. And it works pretty well.
Peace and respect in the chat, Moon Medi, Cryptomeria, and Pixie Storms. Thanks for dropping by. Whether you stay or not, but thanks for dropping by. Okay, so you guys had a topic. What do we got?
Well, I wanted to talk about the very strange Judges 19.
Now, why does it strike you as being strange?
Well, it has a very sort of strange story to tell, and I'm trying to discern what the hell the meaning of it is. And it involves a concubine who is later dismembered into 12 parts, which is a reference to, of course, the 12 tribes. And it just seems so effing horrible that I can't have the meaning right. The meaning of the surface meaning of this this chapter in the Bible can't be what it really means. At least I hope not. It's just like, this is almost. It's like one of those really horrible horror movies where someone is abused. It's a snuff film. It's a snuff film disguised as a movie experience, and this seems to be familiar in that sense. Did you want me to read it out? Because I have it ready here.
We're going to. I'm going to bring it up on the screen in just a moment. But first, peace and respect, Wildheart, Krishna, and SFB Mod as well. Thank you very much for coming by.
Hello there, Moon, Cryptomeria, and Wildheart again. And everybody else. I'm sorry if I missed anyone.
Yeah, hey, everybody.
Okay, so is that verse at Judges 19:1, is that discernible? Can people read that? Is that big enough, or should I do something about it?
I can read it, fine.
It's a little bit bigger that way.
Yeah, that's better.
Oh, you want me to read what's on your screen?
Well, it's I don't know which edition you're reading from. It doesn't much matter. They're all about the same.
Okay,
If
NIV is
there's
what I have.
mistakes, they have the same mistakes.
Mm,
So it's okay. But we are eventually going to go back to the original language and look at some of these key words. Not all of them, because that would just take forever. But some of
yes. Okie dokie,
them. Floor
it
is yours,
says.
sir.
It is Judges 19, a Levite and his concubine. Now, in those days, Israel had no king. Now, a Levite who lived in a remote area in the hill country of Ephraim took a concubine from Bethlehem in Judah, but she was unfaithful to him. She left him and went back to her parents' home in Bethlehem, Judah. After she had been there for 4 months, her husband went to her to persuade her to return. He had with him his servant and 2 donkeys. The 2 donkeys are really important. Sorry. She took him into her parents' home, and when her father saw him, he gladly welcomed him. His father in law, the woman's father, that's redundant, prevailed on him to stay. So he remained with him 3 days, eating and drinking and sleeping there. On the 4th day he got up early and prepared to leave, but the woman's father said to his son in law, "Refresh yourself with something to eat, then you can go." So the two of them sat down to eat and drink together. Afterward, the woman's father said, "Please stay tonight and enjoy yourself." And when the man got up to go, his father in law persuaded him, so he stayed there that night. On the morning of the 5th day, he rose to go, and the father said, "Refresh yourself, wait till afternoon." And so the two of them ate together. Then the man, with his concubine and servant, got up to leave. His father in law, the woman's father, said, "Now look, it's almost evening. Spend the night here. The day is nearly over. Stay and enjoy yourself. Early tomorrow morning you can get up and be on your way home." But unwilling to stay another night, the man left and went toward Jebus, that is, Jerusalem, with his 2 saddled donkeys and his concubine. When they were near Jebus and the day was almost gone, the servant said to his master, "Come, let's stop at the city of the Jebusites and spend the night." His master replied, "No, we won't go into any city whose people are not Israelites. We will go on to Gibeah." He added, "Come, let's try and reach Gibeah or Ramah, and spend the night in one of those places." So they went on, and the sun set as they reached Gibeah in Benjamin. There they stopped to spend the night. They went and sat in the city square, but no one took them in for the night. That evening, an old man from the hill country of Ephraim, who was living in Gibeah, the inhabitants of the place were called Benjamites, came in from his work in the fields. When he looked and saw the traveler in the city square, the old man said, "Where are you going? Where did you come from?" He answered, "We are on our way from Bethlehem in Judah to a remote area in the hill country of Ephraim where I live. I've been to I've been to Bethlehem in Judah, and now I'm going to the house of the Lord. No one has taken me in for the night. We have both straw and fodder for our donkeys, and bread and wine for ourselves, your servants. Me, the woman, and the young man with us, we don't need anything." "You are welcome at my house," the old man said. "Let me supply you with whatever you need, only don't spend the night in the square." So he took him into his house and fed his donkeys. After they had washed their feet, they had something to eat and drink. While they were enjoying themselves, some of the wicked men, this will ring a bell with the angels in the house of Lot, I think it is. While they were enjoying themselves, some of the wicked men of the city surrounded the house, pounding on the door. They shouted to the old man who owned the house, "Bring out the man who came to your house so we can have sex with him." The owner of the house went outside and said to them, "No, my friends, don't be so vile. Since this man is my guest, don't do this outrageous thing. Look, here's my virgin daughter and his concubine. I'll bring them to you now, and you can use them and do to them whatever you wish. But as for this man, don't do such an outrageous thing." But the men would not listen to him. So the man took his concubine and sent her outside to them, and they raped her and abused her throughout the night. And at dawn they let her go. At daybreak the woman went back to the house where her master was staying, fell down at the door, and lay there until daylight. When her master got up in the morning and opened the door of the house and stepped out to continue on his way, there lay his concubine, fallen in the doorway of the house, with her hands on the threshold. He said to her, "Get up, let's go." But there was no answer. Then the man put her on his donkey and set out for home. When they reached home, he took a knife and cut up his concubine, limb by limb, into 12 parts and set them into all the areas of Israel. Everyone who saw it was saying to one another, "Such a thing has never been seen or done, not since this day the Israelites came up out of Egypt. Just imagine, we must do something, so speak up." And questions, comments?
Lots of stuff. Lots of stuff.
Yes. I mean, I have thoughts about this, but I would rather perhaps hear from you guys who I think might have a clearer idea of what this means.
Peace and respect, DB Cisco, H Theo, and MacTheHuman, of course. Well, I'd like to hear what you guys think first.
All right, Mac, it's up to you, man. No, I will go if you want me to.
I definitely I appreciate how confounding this is, for sure. I get I mean, on the face of it, that's very offensive. All of it. I mean, yes, protect the guy from being abused by these people pounding on the door, but don't throw him a proxy. But here's the thing. There's as soon as you start thinking about proxy and here's somebody to take the heat instead of this innocent person, that's a Jesus story now, and so if you can start mapping it onto that, the whole the very last part was pretty clearly about, we've been to the cities that are full of wicked people, and now we're on the way to Israel. Let's go there instead, like, let's get out of Egypt, I don't know. I mean, I think it's definitely a lot more cryptic than some of the other texts we've examined, and I'm not sure like what lesson we're supposed to learn on a surface level from this, because I often wonder that when I'm examining these things through the kind of reading frame that Richard's offered us. It ought to serve on several levels, some kind of lesson or moral instruction or societal benefit or something like that. And the superficial lesson here is pretty awful. So, that's kind of where I'm at with it. I'm kind of shook up and moved at the same time. It's kind of a strange thing for me. So what did you were talking about the tribes of Israel and the 12 sections of the concubine being a good fit. I can't quite get there.
Well, I was thinking that it seems clear to me that the men who are outside the house are not Israelites or they're not Jewish. That even though Gibeah, what's the
Close
house that
enough.
he spoke? Even though it's considered safe to this person, to the master in the story,
Right.
I think it's meant to symbolize that that these people who attack them or make demands on them are not Jewish. They're not from Israel. And then we notice that the woman is chopped into 12, and it might be a replaying of actually the journey out of Egypt. Because it occurred to me that although there are 12 tribes in Egypt, I think they become more distinct after they leave Israel and then are separated. Because we remember that Judea and Israel were two different kingdoms. And we even have lost tribes of Israel, of course. So this may be a way of telling the story again in a way that may, and of course, the way we tell stories is important, and we have stories that may be psychologically satisfying that we do not, and we don't even understand the reasons why. Children, of course, often want to have the same, maybe Mac can verify this, maybe some children want to hear the same bedtime story over and over.
That's definitely that's classic, yeah.
Yeah. So, but whatever you do, do not read Bruno Bettelheim in the subject. He lied. His whole book is just full of shit. And he was a famous psychoanalyst who would claim that he could, if a child had problems, and it was called The Uses of Enchantment. And it turned out later that the guy was just a complete fucking liar.
I never heard of that guy.
Oh, Jesus. It would say, you know that Rapunzel let down your hair, that fairy tale?
Yes.
Bruno Bettelheim had a way of, well, this girl was suffering from X, Y, and Z, and I could tell by her obsession with this story that she had such and such wrong with her, and that sort of thing. And the solution was to do X, Y, and Z.
That's
and
ridiculous.
He was, yes, but he told it well, and people believed it. And eventually it all came out after he was dead, which is unfortunate. But the thing is that a story like Rapunzel might be very, very satisfying to us, and we might not know why today. But I think this business of trying to get to Jerusalem, the promised city, and there are terrible things along the way. And I'm not so sure that the woman is being punished for being raped. She seems to be dead after the rape. He get up, let's go. There was no answer. Then he put her on his donkey and set out for home.
By the way, still, I think donkeys are important.
Because two donkeys were led into Jerusalem for Christ, for the Messiah.
Well, that's a slightly. It's one of the definitional uses of an ass. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I feel that even in that description, for example, what is all this crap about going to the woman's home and her father keeping him as a guest and wanting to be hospitable? This just goes on, and you want to tell them to hurry up the story. You know, have you ever had bad storytelling and you feel yourself doing this? I can't show the gesture on screen, but you're wanting to hurry them up. It's almost like bad storytelling is a bit like listening to a stutterer. you have to remind yourself to be patient, to understand them, and to let them speak. You know, even if it's clumsy in some way.
Sure.
I At any rate, I don't think the concubine, this business about being unfaithful to him, a concubine has a contract. This is something I read about this. In a sense, it's like a contract. She's not a wife, but she's not a prostitute, whatever might be indicated here. And she goes back to her father. And this occurred to me is a bit like Israel in many of these stories later in the Bible, where Israel
good.
does something wrong and goes away from God and then comes back. I'm not the first one to note that, of this tendency for the Bible to have Israel punished and then return to in accordance with the covenant.
Yep. That's pretty good.
Okay.
That's heading down a path that might make some sense.
Maybe I just I find this I just find this very curious, and also everyone who saw it was saying to one another, "Such thing has never been seen or done." Not
And that's
since
not
the day.
quite the end of the story.
It isn't? Oh, well, it's verse 30 in Judges 19.
It's still on the screen, yes.
Yeah. So, not since the Israelites came out of Egypt, just imagine, we must do something, so speak up. And speak up about what? This implies that someone in some other part of Israel gets an arm from a concubine, and maybe there's a note attached telling the story. It's absurd.
If it's looked at historically, this is absurd.
Yeah. So so everything has a sort of alternate meaning. It's like a really badly written.
It has a primary meaning that people don't talk about.
All right. Well, having said all that, what's your take on it, Richard? Now, obviously, you would give this enormous amount of time if you were looking at it word by word, but
yes,
I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Eventually, I hope to get to it. First, of SFB mod, Joel's right. The story doesn't really end here. There is a throng of soldiers sent forth to wipe out that city.
Okay? Oh, okay. I didn't read past that. I thought it was what a great researcher I am.
Well, you have to understand that when they broke this down into chapters and verses, there were no chapters and verses, first of all, in the original Hebrew. You understand that already. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they split it up in weird places, like here in the middle of the story.
So, maybe since someone has read ahead, maybe someone can clue me in. I will go ahead.
I don't think you're going to need to. I don't think you're going to need to do that. Peace and respect, Marty. Thanks for dropping by. I don't think we're going to need to do that if we just cover some of the things that you guys already know. Okay. Who searches out the city, the great city, the city that we call Earth? Who searches it out for God?
Maybe the Archangel Michael?
Well, he doesn't show up till the end of the story, but there's someone that searches it out before him. Unmute, Mac. Feel free to speak whenever.
It's Christ.
Yes. It's Christ, yeah. Peace and respect, immutable destiny.
Hey.
Okay, so when I say wife, what does wife mean in reference to Christ?
Well, as a Catholic, it would be the church.
The church meaning what? A building?
No, the
believers.
Yes.
Okay, now taking into consideration Christ and his bride, what would concubine mean?
Jesus. I
The other,
um
the
It's the
other,
other woman, right?
the other woman. Yeah,
It's the other
so
woman, but not your bride, not your
right.
wife.
Well, oh, I'm sorry. I had my microphone in the wrong position. I hope you can hear me better now.
Go ahead.
Would the concubine then represent a false church?
You're in the right neighborhood. Congratulations. People who kind of believe, but they're not really the bride.
Okay, so people who are going along with the meaning of the faith, but are not truly immersed in it, and not necessarily believers.
Or people that can't accept the paradigm shift. They can't accept the correction of Jesus.
But they're attracted to it.
They're attracted to it. They're in the
Yeah.
neighborhood, but they're not on the money. They're off. Now, of that group of people, do you suppose that some are going to be killed at the end of the story? They're going to die with the planet.
Yes.
Do you think that's going to be a sign to those who don't die with the planet? Do we really need to talk more about this story? I mean, that's it, right? You might like get into some particulars, like why is it this town, and why is the name of it this, and why the asses mentioned 5 times.
Yes, like it's okay to give the donkeys a cameo, but do you have to keep talking about them?
Okay, so there's two usages of the idea of an ass. Okay. First of all, just like we refer to people as, oh, that guy is a corn-fed ox. That guy, he's a sheep. That guy is a wolf. That guy, we use these kinds of expressions even today. That's the way the Bible is using these, using animals to describe kinds of people. Whenever you look into the word sheep, ox, camel, all these animal terms in the Bible, you're going to find that it describes something that is never an aspect of a lower animal that's not aware. It always has this implied, inferred meaning that is referring to a kind of a person.
So these donkeys represent people who, forgive the expression, along for the ride?
The donkeys are people along for the ride.
I don't know how else to, like, what do they represent as people?
We can look it up because we've got Blue Letter Bible and there's reference to Strong's and definitions. We can look up how it's being used there. You want to do that?
Okie dokie. If you don't mind, because
SFB mod is completely correct. The word goats throughout the text, it means fake believers.
Okay.
And, I mean, some Christians know stuff like this, some don't.
Sheep go to heaven, goats go to hell.
Yeah, right. The separating the sheep from the goats, same as saying the wheat from the tares or weeds. Yeah, same idea. Let me find one of the occurrence of the word ass in this. I thought it was more often than this, and I would have seen them by now.
The third verse has it, 19:3.
Okay, we'll just go right to 19:3 because you already spotted one. Okay. Oh my gosh, it's a long one. Can you find a shorter one with the word asses in it?
Sorry.
I'm going to be paging down forever. It's not. No,
somebody
it's
did Control F, and that'll.
How about?
It's taking forever to load. Let's try it again. There we go. On the mouse, you roll the roller down. On this, you have to push up on a touchpad.
Oh, that's not good.
Where did I go past it, or did I? Oh, here we go.
Mhm.
Okay, so here's asses, which is actually, of course, ass, not asses. Their word camor, based in the idea. Oh yeah, boy, you're not kidding. This word is actually a lot in the Old Testament in the parts that I've already translated, talking about the disgustingness of man, especially on the internet or the Tower of Babel. It uses exactly the same term, kamar. It means daub, as in a sticky substance.
Huh.
To be foul or to ruin something. Red, as in like sticky, nasty, half-dried blood.
Wow.
Also tar pit, also pitch, those kinds of ideas. Okay.
Wait a second. Where's the definition that includes ass?
This is the root of the word ass.
Okay. Very odd,
See,
but it reminds me of those notions of, for example, red earth to create Adam out of
very
dirt,
good.
or the clotting of blood that's in the Quran. Man was created
No.
out of a clot of blood.
Yes, that's right. We in our ascended state look back at our fouled state and we go, gosh, we're not going to do that crap again. That's the whole idea. Thank you for adding that.
I do what I can.
So it translates to a he ass, not a she ass. There is she ass. It's a different word. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
As if all asses are red, which is why the connection. Now we all know that asses are not all red, unless you cut them. Then they're all red. And we know that asses don't make moral decisions, especially bad ones.
That's right.
They're just not capable of moral decisions, and it's about making moral bad choices and being called an ass for that reason. Now, this is not the same word ass that's going to appear in the story of Samson. That's going to be a different kind of ass. Because that one means foolish. Okay? So hit it, Mac. How does becoming corrupt carry the idea of corruption, carry the woman who is not the bride? Hit it.
The idea of corruption carries the woman who is not the bride.
Yeah.
So that's why she's not the bride.
You got it, man. How easy was that?
That was pretty easy.
Now, is the woman who is carried by corruption likely to perish?
Yes.
Okay. Any other things we think are weird about this story that doesn't really work?
I just question whether it's a story worth telling. But this, of course, one of the good things about Israel, or the Jews in general, is that they developed a literate culture, perfectly literate, at least for the priestly class. And they did not, and they did this while being nomadic, which is pretty hard. When everything you carry has to be, you have to justify every pound. And they were carrying around God knows how many copies of their holy books.
Well, actually, Steve, it makes perfect sense if we're talking about end times. It's just like the hedge of protection and the manna from heaven. And why does it make sense to kick somebody out of the camp unless the camp were protection and food and everything else? they didn't pack materials with them enough to last 40 years. That's not the story.
No.
That doesn't even make sense. They didn't have a line all the way back to Egypt, people passing food and stuff forward. There's nothing to eat in a desert. In the Sinai, what happens in the Sinai is people go out there and die. That's what they do. And it takes a lot less than 40 years for them to die.
Of course, we're not even sure if they spent 40 years out there, really.
Well, the story is 40.
Yes. Yes.
You can debate if it's years or days or weeks. You can debate that. But it definitely says 40. Of course, the numeral 40 means something to the Hebrew people, which has nothing to do with the number 40.
Oh, right, because all numbers are related to letters. Do we know what that the number 40 actually means? I guess
I did not bring my notebook with me that would have that in it. I apologize.
That's okay. I will use the wonderful Google machine and see if I can find it.
Yeah, just something like, what does the number 40 mean to the Jewish people? Something like that.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, or anything like that. I love that computers will just like almost think for you. You can write the worst sentence ever. Cryptomeria from before. I am not embarrassed by human sexuality. Not at all. I am also very glad for the existence of Pornhub, if the existence of Pornhub means less rape and abuse of people. I'm all for it. If someone has such problems, peace and respect to Kevin Chaos, if someone has such problems that they can't have a normal adult relationship of a sexual nature, and they just can't accomplish that, please let them use Pornhub.
Oh, no. That I thought I found something. There's a lot of what you find is that
probation.
You find the number 40 used repeatedly throughout the Bible, but
Yes.
I'm not finding search hits that's define a special meaning. There is the number 40 was used as a measurement of the water in a mikvah, which is the cleansing bath.
Isn't that interesting that 40 should have to do with cleansing?
Yeah, and also, even the mikvah is really the predecessor to baptism.
Do you know what else would be 40 days? Or the number 40? Post-resurrection, the post-resurrection testimony of Jesus.
Was that 40 days?
Yep.
Okay.
40 days and then ascension. Yeah. Said so several times. The road to Emmaus, the walk to Emmaus, that's 40 days.
The result I keep getting is that it's a period of testing or probation. That's usually what it comes back to.
The idea of probation, that makes sense too. Probation, cleansing, testimony. Yeah, those all work pretty good together.
Yeah.
I mean, after all, it's during that time frame that the woman with the issue of blood, that the woman with the dying daughter comes to Christ and says, please, please, please. And he's like, look, you already had your chance. Now you're going to have to prove to me. I mean, in the second half of end times, that will be the norm. So in that way, very much a real, actual, in-the-moment judge of people and their spirit, whether or not they're honest.
Right.
I mean, if you'd already seen the 7 signs, heaven was hovering in the sky, you'd already met angels, everything happened in the order that all these religions are telling, and you are still refusing it. I don't know what to tell you. You got some problems.
Right.
Link to join. You guys want to bring somebody in? There's a Wild Heart asking.
Wild Heart is a friend of mine, but if he breaks out into karaoke, then whatever you do, just kick him out.
You've been forewarned by the zebra. Let's go ahead and open it up, and anybody that wants to come in, please come in.
Sounds good. Yeah, come on in, everybody.
Do we have a link for that?
Richard just threw it up.
Well, I have a link for that. I don't know if you.
There it is. Sorry, I didn't see it until
Did
just
I ever
now.
give you guys? Did I give both you guys mod powers, or did I forget that, or did I skip it?
I think I have mod powers, but I don't know what to do with them.
They're basically not good for much, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had a lot of trolls in here, that would be different. But this isn't the kind of channel that attracts dumpster fires and trolls.
Right.
Because it's just I'm asking people to come in and use their whole brain, and trolls aren't, and they're not interested.
Right.
We did get a request to read the rest of the story in Judges.
Yeah, but we covered the rest of the story. It's end times. Angels are the ones that kill the sinful city.
Oops.
That's why people perish. Yes, the people who perish, the not bride, are divided into 12 equal parts, some from each of Israel, of course. And yes, nothing like that ever happened before.
Mm.
And when it starts talking about how we have to do something and the angels are sent, that's the end of the end. This is the completion of the vials or bowls, depending on which Bible you read.
Mm.
The completion of the bowls?
Sometimes the vials are called bowls. Sometimes they're called. Sometimes there's parts that say plagues.
Huh.
I mean, it depends on what language or which edition of the Bible you read. I don't know which one you're reading.
Hi there, Wildheart. I hope you're feeling better.
Yeah, a little bit better than most English.
You sound super quiet. Please turn up your volume.
Right, I will do. Thank you, Richard Madsen, for letting me in, and good to see Steve and Mac again. Return over, Mac. I'll just put my promise not to let you do that.
What's up, Wildheart?
That was your one karaoke grace moment. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Mm.
That was it, though.
Yeah.
I did.
I'm just in the settings at the moment. Echo. Yeah, I put it up to 200. Hopefully that's better.
Okay, that's probably worse. I don't know what you did. Now I have an echo. Turn off your YouTube channel. Turn off my YouTube channel. I mean.
Sorry, I apologize for this. Yeah, it's no.
Would you speak continuously? Maybe recite your favorite joke or poem.
I'm trying to remember the Jimmy Carr. I might be my internet as well. The Jim. Yeah, I keep going. Yeah, it might be my internet. Carry on. I'll be right back. I'll mute and stop my camera.
Okay.
You sounded better right at the end there.
Mm.
I just cranked up his volume all the way.
Oh.
Is that better?
We can hear you good enough. Don't do anything different.
Right,
Except turn off your YouTube.
No, I've not got YouTube on.
Except you do.
You must.
Oh, I know why. You see, he's not wearing a headset. So
I'll be right back. I'll pull my head.
Thank you.
Oh.
That's probably it. Thank you.
We hear his external speakers, yeah.
Richard doesn't have that problem, or are you wearing earpods or whatever they call them? Ah, there
See
you
the
go.
black thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're all modern there, sir.
Yeah, these are really nice. I mean, I recommended them to Brojo, and he sent them back because he didn't like the microphone in them. But I don't use the microphone in these. But they're bone conductors.
Yes.
So, like, here, watch this.
Cool.
The microphone that I'm using right now is part of the laptop. Here, one of you guys yell. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yell?
Woo!
Go ahead. Yell all you
Hey!
want.
Hello.
Yeah.
Nice.
The microphone ain't going to pick up anything.
You know,
Nice.
I'm often told my voice sounds really good, but if you could hear my voice as I hear it, you'd be amazed.
It's really sexy through your skull. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, it's just very resonant and deep.
Right on.
Is that
Hey,
better?
that's a
so
lot
much
better.
Thank you.
Oh, cheers. All right. Cheers.
Okay, now I'm going to turn the
carry on.
volume down a little bit. Because
Yeah.
now
And it
it's
Okay.
makes your
a bit
head
high.
look bigger, which is really good for you.
Yeah. With the swollen cheeks, yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Sorry.
I
Carry on.
say that. I don't know. Didn't really mean it that way.
No, you're fine. Yeah, carry on.
Mm.
Sorry.
You know, Steve's got no room to talk. He's always got a long face.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
you asked my favourite joke. A horse walks into the bar and says, "Why the long face?"
I love
Yeah.
that one.
A bear walks into the bar. He asks for a drink. He says, "Why the big paws?"
A bear. Yeah.
Oh.
You didn't pause while ordering the drink. You have to pause while ordering the drink.
Yeah, I messed that up. Sorry.
It has to be something really, really standard. Like
Yeah. A
I'd
bear
like
walks into a bar.
I'd like a classic rum and
Mm.
Coke, something
Right.
like that. You know,
Why
He
the
says,
big
"Why
paws?"
the big paws?"
I can't help it. I'm a bear. Yeah. I love that joke. That's great.
Maybe we could make a few more of them. How would you do that joke with a kangaroo? No, I don't see.
Let's see. Kangaroos have pouches.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
only
I'll have
females.
drink to go somehow.
The drink
I
I
don't
have
know.
to go. No,
the-
wait. It's supposed to be a play on words. It'd have to be a play on words on the word something that has to do with a kangaroo. So
Yeah,
how else can
yeah.
you use the word pouch?
Can't really.
That's pretty tough.
They do boxing and they have powerful hind legs. I don't know
Yeah.
if that helps or not. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
by the way, if you're having sex
Marsupial.
with a kangaroo, it's polite to lift the tail. Don't ask me how I know that.
Only a zebra.
It's very strange.
Only a zebra would know something like that. But okay.
Yes. Well,
Okay. So Wildheart, what did you think of our collective explanation of a very strange verse from the Bible? What did you think of it?
I've got a confession to make. I've been in
You
Will
didn't see
Freeman's. I didn't see it, no. Sorry.
That's okay.
I've been in Will Freeman's private hangout. I didn't see it.
How is
Sorry.
William doing?
He's still taking the piss out of me. He's trying to wind me up by whenever I join his hangouts, he puts me backstage every couple of seconds, which winds me up to fuck, and that's why he's doing it. Oh, sorry, I'm okay swearing on your channel.
This is an 18+ channel. I don't know
Right.
about children.
Yeah.
we're grown.
He's trying to wind me up to fuck by keep putting me backstage every 2 seconds, which does wind me up, so that's why I left. I said the next time you put me backstage, I'm going to leave. So, yeah,
Okay.
I've been in there, so I haven't seen the conversation.
Peace and respect, Christian Carpenter.
Sorry.
Thanks for coming by.
Hello, Christian Carpenter.
Okay.
Hey there.
So the story doesn't seem to make much sense, and it seems grotesque and violent. And I'm ready to freely admit that end times is going to be shocking, and parts of it grotesque, and parts of it violent. I'm willing to just bite the bullet on that. But I also think there's no avoiding it in consideration of leaving people some actual choice. Not free will. I don't believe in free will. I believe in free won't. But if people are left a choice, sometimes people make bad choices.
Yeah. So it's violent and gonna be disruptive, but it can't be any other way. It's the best way it could be.
I think it is the best it could possibly be. Yeah,
Right.
Without forcing people.
Yeah.
there is an interesting thing that occurred to me. You know this thing in the Bible where, like with the Amalekites, they're ordered to kill men, women, children, animals, that sort of thing. And
Sure.
it occurred to me that it's reminiscent of what Genghis Khan used to do. Because I'm not kidding. If you are, he would approach cities and ask them to surrender. And when they didn't, he would say, okay, I'm going to come in and kill every man, woman, and child. And he would.
Yeah.
And this was a way of getting cities to surrender on the spot.
Sure.
Yeah, he preferred the
You know.
surrender. Right?
Yeah.
He preferred them to surrender so he could sort of, incorporate them into his empire.
Yes.
Yeah, like the Romans did that as well. Whenever they like overtook Britain, they would take all the gods that the British had and incorporate them into the pantheon.
Yeah.
They did that as well. Yeah.
How very
Yeah.
Catholic of them, which is what the word Catholic
Yeah.
means.
Yes. Yes.
All right, I didn't know.
Catholic means inclusive.
Yeah, the
Ah,
Romans
right.
would also make offerings to local gods because they wanted their favor when they went in and tried to take over the place.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You guys want to hear something funny? Rebuke and reprove, or Jesus is Lord, is in the chat. Peace and respect.
Hey,
and welcome.
Jill.
And despite what he might think of me, I'm actually very, very happy to see him make the icon of an alien, professing that he understands that I espouse that angels and the Father are alien humans. So I'm glad he understands that. I hope he never forgets. And I'm glad I made that impression with him that idea is in his head. Good. So you might think you're making fun of me, but I'm actually very happy to see you do that.
Extraterrestrial.
After all, yeah, literally extraterrestrial, literal aliens. After all, if a person were expecting to poof out of existence and poof into heaven, and that didn't happen, but instead the actual physical heaven showed up, and they couldn't accept that, and they didn't know what it was, then they might have a harder time going to heaven.
Mm.
And I don't want that for anyone. The Borg. I think the Borg is actually more like Satan's crew, actually. I think they're just as real and physical as we are, but they are without emotion. They are extremely practical. And that is why there's a story in there where, quote unquote, God hardens Pharaoh's heart. That is, Pharaoh can't understand emotions. And because he literally, I mean, I know this is hard for us to imagine. Try to imagine someone describing emotions to you when you don't have them and you trying to understand that. That's like impossible. And every time you acted on emotion, that perfectly practical being would be just like confused as hell.
Right.
I think I never did say peace and respect to Ivan. Peace and respect. Welcome.
Ivan.
All right, guys. Challenge it or change the subject or here's a fun game. Here's a fun game. What's the most ridiculous story in the Bible or any religion for that matter? That's a fun game for me.
Oh, hell. That's it.
Okay, let's talk about hell.
No, I meant in the sense of finding the most ridiculous one. There's a lot of competition.
There is. I mean, in the Christian reading frame that I was taught as a child, there's a lot of competition for stupidity within the stories.
Talking animals is my suggestion. Talking animals, talking donkeys.
That's
talking
a good
snakes.
one. Yeah, we've
Those
got
are all over the place, too. Those aren't just in
serpent
Christianity.
and was it a donkey?
Sure.
The talking donkey as well.
What was the name of the guy riding the donkey? Somebody help me out.
I think he was I can't remember now, but wasn't he a servant of Baal?
Yeah, of course he is.
Balaam.
That was
Balaam.
it.
Okay.
Balaam, I think.
Richard's going to look it up and tell us what the name means.
Numbers 22 to 24.
Actually, I already know. I just wanted to show you guys.
Okay, go for it, man.
I just want to prove my case. Where do you want it from? Numbers 22 what?
To 24.
Let me see if I can find the ass in the story as well. So So they're in close proximity. See if I can get it at the same time.
All right, Wildheart is cleaning his glasses. He's getting ready.
Here we go.
Balaam
Rolling up
and
your
ass.
sleeves.
So it's in Numbers 22:21. Let me go back here and do the share screen thing. I don't have a mouse. I'm using a touchpad. It takes forever.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's aton. It is a totally different word.
Yes.
You're like, I know. I said that.
Oh, there's
I said
Balaam.
that. Yeah. See, there's negative ass and there's positive ass in that language.
Oh,
Like matter and antimatter?
Is there ever a negative ass?
Yes, there
all
is.
asses. I like big butts and I cannot lie.
I'm glad you're telling us the truth and that motivates you. That's awesome. Okay, so Balaam, can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Yep.
Excuse me.
Okay. Let me go back here and make it as big as possible.
Before you do though, Ivan wants me to show you my tiny Bible that Nisha sent me. That is my tiny Bible.
I don't know what. Do you read it with a microscope? I don't know how you even accomplish something with
No,
that.
it's quite big writing. It's not a full Bible. It's just like
No kidding.
outtakes. Yeah, it's just like well-known phrases and sayings from the Bible.
Huh.
Okay.
Never seen one of those.
It's like a tract.
Like a chick tract, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry.
Hopefully not so chicky as a chick tract.
Yes. Those are illegal in Canada, by the way.
Interesting.
They're considered hate speech because so many of them.
Right.
Yeah, some of them are pretty specific against.
Well, they have anti-Catholic stuff. They have. They're not explicitly anti-Jewish, but they draw Jewish people in weird, exaggerated racist stuff.
Does anybody have a notebook?
Yes, I have one.
Someone grab something to write with, something to write on, because it's going to be hard. There's a lot of root here.
You're doing Balaam, right?
Got it.
Yeah, this is the word Balaam. Yeah.
Yeah.
Balaam.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot.
There's like 4 different steps for this.
Right. LAH.
No, you don't need to write down. That's fine. Okay, write down. Go down 4 lines and write to fail.
To fail.
Yep. And then on the 3rd line down belongs the phrase a failure.
A failure. Yes.
Right.
And then on the line above that, not of the people.
Not of the people.
Yeah.
Yeah. You realise that I am technically your slave at the moment. You are making me your slave.
I'm not making you. You're doing this voluntarily, and I'm not. You're not my indentured servant or anything like that.
Yeah.
And the second half of the word. So go over to the right of that.
Yeah.
If you would please. So you're not a slave. If you would please. Oh, interesting. To the right of that and 2 lines down.
Yeah.
The word association or to associate would be fine.
Association, yes, like football, proper football, UK football, where you actually use your feet. Association football, yes, got it.
The verb.
Unlike American football, where you almost never use your feet.
Yeah.
And above that, on the first line, to the side, a people.
A people.
A people, as in a collective, a troop, a
So
flock.
it's the people, not of the people,
That's
essentially
right.
outside of Israel.
That you got it. That's right. That's what it's going to be.
Yeah. Got all that. Yeah.
Okay. And
They could have just said outsiders, but no. They have to make it complicated.
it's poetic language.
It's not that poetic.
And here we have a different word asked than the one we looked up earlier today. If you'll go back, this one is athon, meaning to continue.
Mm. Mm.
Right.
Specifically, something permanent or concretized. Specifically, a chief or chieftain. So
It says
what we
chieftain
have
there. I
here,
missed that.
what's that?
Oh, sorry, I didn't see chieftain there. I see perpetual, but I'll take your word for it. You don't have to go
I don't
back.
know. You said perpetual is a usage. Please look at the word definitions and what's under the word definitions.
Oh, okay. Mm.
A permanent chieftain.
Right. So if I said there was a permanent chieftain and on the back of him was someone not of the people, and this one who is not of the people is a worshiper of Balaam, Baal, a false god.
Bala, yeah.
Baal, a false god, right?
Yeah.
What we've got here, well, can anyone decipher that?
What did you write down, Wildheart?
I can't show it because I wrote
Just
Bala,
read it aloud, boss.
Bala, not of the people, a failure to fail, a people association.
It's the people who fail.
Right, but this is a specific one. He's a worshiper of Baal. He's of the people who fail. He's on the back of the permanent chieftain.
Hmm. I see. This is Satan.
The donkey is the chieftain.
Who's the donkey? Come on, who's the donkey?
Oh,
Give me the rest of it.
please don't tell me it's Christ.
Good job, guys.
Why is the donkey Christ?
Yay! Yay!
Because he's the permanent chieftain.
Oh,
You know, a donkey is thought of as a pack animal that does a lot of work and is extremely sure-footed and dependable.
Okay. Okay.
In this context. In fact, it's the donkey who first sees the angel.
Right.
And the one riding his back can't see the angel. And the angel's going to kill the one who is on the donkey's back, the ass's back. But the ass keeps turning away from the angel who's going to kill the rider from Balaam and saving Balaam's life. And he does that twice.
Something interesting, and it leads credence to this notion that God is not the only God, is that this Balaam is actually a very powerful magician. And the angel's there to stop him from cursing Israel, I think it is.
What? You read that from somewhere not the Bible. Where did that come from?
Well, it came from my memory, which is therefore suspect.
Just like every word you use or anyone uses comes from their memory.
Yes.
But that's going to be extra biblical. That's going to be someone's assessment of the story. And it's literally not in the story.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to look it up and see.
I did a quick search, Steve. I couldn't find anything. I mean, I found a site that claims that, but they didn't back it up very well.
Okay, now come and put a curse upon these people because they are too powerful for me.
That part is, yeah.
Okay, it was the king who told him that, and told him to. Okay, well, God says to Balaam, "Do not go with them. You must not put a curse on those people, because they are blessed." And I can't imagine God would want to stop him from making a curse unless it was some sort of threat. but that's just me. You know, it's a story. It makes for a better story if.
Well, these explanations are trying to make this historically accurate.
Okay.
When there's no real practical way to do that. However, when I take into consideration all these definitions of all these people and words and all this story, I mean, we can look up all these names in Numbers 31:8, the names of places like Median and Evi and Rechem and Zur and Hur and Rabbah. And those are going to fit into the story too in this same way of meaning end times. In the order given, you don't have to manipulate anything. I mean, I've just, and you guys don't need to be convinced. I am fully persuaded that this is what it's meaning.
Right.
Is another darn story of end times.
I don't know. So in end times, people, outsiders will come to place a curse on Israel?
Yes, you've heard of Satan, right?
Sure.
Okay. Well, they're part of the story is that Satan arrives and reveals himself to the beast of Satan, and that's when the beast of Satan has to ultimately commit that he's got the wrong god. Not that Satan isn't a god. Satan is a god to his kind. That's not unfair to say, you know. It's just not our kind of God. Us not wanting to worship a singular living being, we feel like that's wrong. That we think that social standards that we all agree upon are the highest thing. That's what we feel is right, you know. And that's actually what I see being described in the stories. Just like the word Midianites means to make argument. That's one I happen to know. Numbers 31:33, 31:2 and 3 uses the word Midianite.
Something that occurred to me today, I've been going through the Joshua stuff because of what we talked about last week, you know, and the stories around Joshua. And something that occurred to me today was that how much attention is paid in the text to this basically lost segment of the population. You know, it's actually a fairly small number, if I remember correctly. I mean, a small percentage of the total number of human beings that will be lost, that will be, you know, part of this tribe that doesn't get it, that doesn't climb aboard. But you know, but the text is very concerned with those people, and
Yes, it is.
and the protagonist spends a lot of time trying to offer every avenue of redemption possible to those people. And actually, it might be considered the main thrust of the story is these poor people who are lost, you know, and the tragedy of that.
Yeah, the whole fetch one sheep out of 99, leave 99
Right.
to fetch one, that whole thing.
Yeah.
Which is
Right.
prevalent. Peace and respect, and welcome Jamie Russell. Also
Yeah.
in the chat, Le Jardinin, I guess, and Don Willis, welcome.
Hi.
Hello, Jamie. Nice to see you.
Hi, Jamie.
Nice to see you guys.
What if when these UFOs come down that they drop off a bunch of books with the title "To Serve Man"?
then we'll have accidentally and accurately predicted the invasion of heaven as aliens that eat human beings. Yeah, pretty unlikely, but
And maybe they like variety in their diet, and they go to different planets,
sure.
you know,
I mean,
on a rotating basis.
if you're you know, a alien force that eats other sentient beings because you consider them to be not sentient, then yeah, you need
Right.
a well-balanced diet. You can't just eat only humans. That's ridiculous. I mean, how are you going to get your nutritional needs met without doing something
And there's
like
a
that?
problem where could you eat something that was grown on another planet? What's the likelihood that your body would be able to munch on that and digest it?
It's about as likely as the unlikelihood that a human being can consume a pine tree.
Yeah, that would be. But if you ever get the chance, try rinsetta. Rinsetta? It's a Greek wine that is stored in pine barrels. And yeah, I know it sounds like pine sol, but
yeah.
God, is it delicious. And
It tastes a little bit like pine salt too. Come on.
You can have my share. Welcome,
delicious pine
welcome,
salt.
Immutable Destiny.
Hey, Immutable Destiny.
Tell us about the time you enjoyed rinsetta.
Are you Immutable? Good to see you.
What's going on?
I think you're the
How's it
only
going?
one here who's heard or tried that. I don't know.
I've
Maybe.
tried it. I've tried it before. It is good with very briny shellfish, like oysters and things like that. It can be very almost transcendent when paired with the right food. But it really needs the right food, in my opinion. And the fresher the shellfish, the better. And the colder the rinsetta, the better as well. But I work at a restaurant, and it's a fairly high-end restaurant. We try to move kind of unusual wines there, and no one has ever bought a bottle of rinsetta, no matter how much we
Yeesh.
recommend it, or it
I
just
would
doesn't
buy
have
it.
a market.
It's a lovely wine with the refreshing taste of pine.
Yeah. There's spruce beer too. It's kind of interesting.
Oh, I'll try that.
Wow.
It's aggressively interesting. Yeah.
Have you ever read Leviticus 11:9?
Leviticus 11:9.
You know, I'm just playing. It's about it's like
Too late. I'm already looking it up.
Okay.
Look it up, man. Look it up for us, man.
These shall ye eat of all that are in the waters, whatsoever hath fins and scales in the water,
Oh, yes.
and the seas and the rivers. But you shouldn't be eating oysters and rinsetta.
Right. Excellent. Yeah, when thou eat of the
I'm
sea,
sorry,
thou shalt only eat that which has fins and scales. To eat anything else, that is an abomination.
From
So
the
that
water.
would be octopus, no octopus,
No,
Uh,
No catfish, no
no
shrimp.
eel. Well, you could eat eels. They have gills, don't they?
yeah, eels are
You
fish.
know, guys, all of that rejection of certain foods hinges on one word in the text that was injected for English.
Food?
Which
Well,
one?
why do Jews not eat shellfish?
Because they think it reads as the Christians traditionally think it reads.
Oh. Well, what does it mean, may I ask?
Well, it doesn't say necessarily you can't have these things. It's talking about foods that are approved. And then I think traditionally things that people thought were gross, they added the idea of do not.
Okay.
I just don't find it in the text.
Well, a lot of the defining characteristics listed, I would argue, could be evidence of the types of creatures they are. For instance, like, that covers a certain kind of fish that doesn't, isn't a bottom feeder, for instance,
Right.
or, like pork and, catfish or shrimp. They're all kind of like, what do you call it? They're cleanup animals. So they eat bad things, essentially.
Right.
Sure.
So you can make that argument, but it's not.
Right.
Yeah.
In a very practical sense, if I say something like, God would that all are saved, I think that's safe to say. God would that all live long enough to be saved. God would that you don't starve to death.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
For sure.
Well, then you have to eat something. There's
Right,
parts
like
of the
you have
world
to-
where you have no choice and you're going to eat crappy food.
Sure, of course. And we eat crappy food. Like, I'm not trying to be. I try not to eat pork and the things in the Bible because I have a weird, background. But I still eat a lot of crap, so I'm kind of a hypocrite in that sense, right?
Can we
Admit
force other people
Yeah,
to eat
unfortunately,
pork?
I have a bad habit of eating food I know that isn't good for me, like fast food, because unfortunately, sometimes it's a question of, do I really want to wake up 2 hours early to do some meal prep and
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
do all this
bacon
as
and
opposed to
pepperoni is
spend
good.
$5 on a KFC or whatever?
I feel you.
Mhm.
Sinner's gonna sin.
Yeah. Unfortunately, to make things worse, it tastes good. At least for me, it does.
Speaking of which, I'm surprised there isn't a passage in the Bible against Taco Bell, which
Oh,
I've been
God, I mean,
hankering after.
Never.
They, of all the things they could have warned us about, man, you ever thought you'd have like an exorcism? Holy crap! Gee whiz.
Or communism. How about? I mean, geez, come on.
Well, I have to
Taco
tell you,
Bell.
I've been missing Taco Bell lately, and I think I'm going to have to find one. There's one a drive away from me, but I may just go there.
Do other Taco Bells around the nation or around the world serve Cinnabon coffee and Cinnabon desserts? Because the ones around here do.
Really?
I think most of them do.
Isn't Cinnabon coffee just coffee with cinnamon?
You mean
No.
the restaurant, right? They have like what kind of coffee do they have? I forget. Do they just have their own coffee, or is it like?
Yeah,
Seems
they
like
have their own. They have their own special blend and roasts. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
I
I know
swear it used to be.
McDonald's. The thing is, too, I remember I used to love. I still need to. Man, I'm getting hungry just thinking about it. But surprisingly, Dunkin' Donuts, like they have like seasonal muffins every now and then for their seasons. And one of my favorites was for fall season. They have pumpkin spice muffins.
Nice.
Right.
Oh, those are fucking great.
So does Tim Hortons up here in Canada. And they have pumpkin spice Timbits, which are
Ooh.
just basically as if the donut holes were made real. And they're just little spheres of donuts, of doughy goodness.
Yeah, they started having those at Taco Bell down here in the States, and like as a dessert, they're just like little Cinnabon donut hole things, but they like melt in your mouth. They're really good.
Wow.
Yeah, they are. I remember
So good.
we used to have like a while back when I was like 7 or 6. We used to have a Krispy Kreme donuts like right around the corner. Oh, guilty pleasure, boy.
Especially when they're fresh. And,
Oh yeah, because we would go into the factory and see them just go through the conveyor belt and
Yeah.
watch
You
them
must
get
have-
glazed and
I have to tell you that I was weirdly freaked out because Canada has like 18 million donut shops. It's
Really?
like old donut shops everywhere. And the thing is that when I went to a Krispy Kreme for the first time, I was in New York. And strangely, I was at the hotel next to the World Trade Center. And I found a Krispy Kreme, so I had them for the first time. They were delicious. And
Oh,
it was
yeah.
there I discovered that American donut technology had surpassed Canada's. And like, we had no goddamn claim to fame at all, except for eating more donuts and having more donut shops. But you guys had the better donuts, there's no question.
When you get them fresh, man, they're amazing.
Oh yeah, they're fantastic.
Yeah, Dunkin' Donuts is kind of weird in Santa Fe, New Mexico because, well, first of all, Santa Fe, New Mexico is a complete lie. It's Santa Fe, New Mexico means saintly, faithful, recently, and part of Mexico. It's not saintly, it's not faithful, it's not new, and it's not Mexico. None of that's true. But it's really interesting because you were talking about seasonal things. They have seasonal things year round here because it's the Mexican thing, you know?
Okay.
You can go down to Dunkin' Donuts and get a corn muffin with jalapeno and cheddar toppings.
Is it good?
Which is
That
really
sounds
good,
interesting.
actually. It's really good.
Huh.
Are the whores reasonably priced in New Mexico?
Well, we didn't get to carry over the prostitution prices from Mexico into New Mexico because this is part of the United States.
No, I just mean like I assume they're homegrown. You know.
You mean the concubines?
Yeah. Well, no, I was thinking.
Do the horrors come with a side of jalapeno sauce, or is that just a typical
Jesus.
option?
Maybe it would remove that skank smell.
It's not jalapeno.
Certainly
sauce,
spice
it's
up the
red.
relationship.
It's red and green chili. Get it right, bro.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
It's either traditional or hatch green chili. Those are your options, no matter what
I
you
remember the chili burrito they had at Taco Bell. It was basically chili in a a wrap. And those weren't bad if you added hot sauce.
Richard's talking about the plant chili.
Sorry.
It's a pepper. It's a chili pepper, and they love it in New Mexico for some reason. Actually, I know the reason. It's delicious. It's good on everything. So
yes.
And I can't believe I went to Santa Fe and didn't try a Dunkin' Donuts muffin because that sounds amazing. I have
Next
to go
time
back
you're there, man. What was it, Wildheart? You were trying to say something?
Yeah. I was almost asleep, and then someone mentioned prostitutes. Just put my ears up. And I woke up.
Did you get a new
Why
mic?
do you think I brought it up?
Your mic sounds really good, Wildheart.
Yeah. I've got a headset. Yeah. But I'll go back. I'm having one of my 10-minute spells of not being completely conscious. So I'll go back to.
I know the feeling.
Well, it's good for you to visit. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Wildheart.
At least it's not as bad as one of those things where you'll just like pass out and then you'll wake yourself up because you're snoring so freaking loudly. Scare yourself asleep.
Whose stream was I on the other day and a bot was just bombarding them? I've got that bot here now.
Is it me?
Is it
following me? It's probably following me.
Probably your fault, Jamie.
How do you fix that problem?
You block it.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't see anything of the kind. But okay.
I don't understand.
That's Jacob. Right.
What does that mean?
Thanks so much for the time. I'm being called away by domestic duties, so.
Okay. Good luck.
Duty calls.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you so much. Yeah, peace and respect to all you guys.
It's been great.
Take care.
Thanks, Matt. Cheers.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Take care.
I'm gonna ride on.
Are they going to invent a new battery?
Is it karaoke if there's no music? It's sort of.
He's the drinking.
We're not good enough we're not good enough to do a cappella, so unfortunately no.
All right, so that doesn't count as karaoke. I see.
Oh my gosh, I think I missed the bot and I blocked somebody who was not the bot, and I don't know who it was.
No, you got it. I think.
Sylvia Jacob.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I don't see them anymore.
Yeah, but I that was the second try.
So I tried looking up that site, and
guys, if I blocked you, if I blocked you, I'll get into my StreamYard community or my YouTube community and unblock you later. Sorry if I blocked you. I
don't see anyone who's been blocked except for the offender.
Yeah.
Sylvia Jacobs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Respect Harple Blues.
So Richard, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to talk bullshit, so you go first.
Well, I was going to ask Richard. We were getting real close to, I think, a point there the last time we talked about.
Yeah, go ahead.
With the Dalai Lama and the well, it was your point that I wanted to get to actually, because you were making a claim about the dead and applying that verse to the Christ, and then I know I've heard people saying that, like, I'm not clear on what your theory is or whatever. Like I've heard that you have this idea that I know you think it's repeated or whatever. I don't know if that's in time or this universe or in different planets or whatever, or how that works, but I'm curious to hear more about it.
Okay. In my brain, you just hit 3 different topics. And I don't know that you think of it the same way as I do, but we'll try to figure this out. Okay. To me, the dead is a group of people who are spiritually dead, because I think the Bible is not about physicality, but it's about spirituality. That is to say, mental conditions. So I think when it reads that Christ is first begotten of the dead, he's the first one brought out of the group who would be dead in that way, i.e. spiritually dead. That is, not understanding the Father, not understanding heaven, probably not even a theist of any flavor at some point in his life. And I think that's perfect, because I think in order to understand how to speak to people about being, without being disrespectful and really understanding their position, and his job is obviously to go after the lost sheep, not the ones who believe properly, but those who are, quote unquote, lost, atheist, agnostic, anti-theist, witches, all these different variants of people's beliefs to bring them to understanding of the new situation. So he would need that kind of background. It would be very handy for him to have been an atheist at some point or something like that. Is that in the neighborhood of what you're talking about?
Yeah, I don't know. So if the Christ in the Bible is that sort of thing, that to me, so what do you do with these verses about pre-existence and divinity? And if you have a different standard than the standard view, then what do you, so does he have a pre-existence? And because it doesn't appear that he was an atheist at any point in his incarnation. So I would then also ask, when he speaks to the Father and talks of like his glory he had with him before the foundation of the world, things like that, like what are you saying he was an idea in the mind of God sort of thing, and then he like predicted sort of thing, and then he was adopted sort of position, and then fulfilled the role? Or how does all that work?
You understand that I believe that this is an occurrence of an earth, right?
Sure. I had that idea.
And when Christ says, "I am doing as I see my Father doing before me," he's talking about his Father in heaven, and that his Father in heaven did it before him. That his Father in heaven was a Christ.
Oh, okay. So when he says like, make
oh, that's interesting.
One, like we were one, before the foundation of the world, sort of thing. It seems like he's making a distinguishing between the one he's praying to and himself, and how they had union. Yes. So how does that exactly make? I'm trying to put that in the context you just gave, and I'm having trouble, I guess.
Okay, would the Father been around at the time of the invention of this planet?
Yeah, I would think so, yes.
Okay, so if the Father was a Christ, then was Christ here at the beginning of this planet?
You mean like the position of like this divine character, right?
Well,
okay, I hear you.
No, it's literally Jesus Christ every time. That's how all things are made through, with, and for.
So are they a hive mind?
What's that?
Are these? So he's praying to somebody, presumably, like you said, it would be the
praying
Father.
To the Father.
He had the same role. It's like a role then.
It seems like he's appealing to like a modality of sorts, like where he's praying to like something that is almost identical to him, but it's operating like in a different context that we would realize it as being like a creator,
like the Dalai Lama.
That immutable. That's in the neighborhood, but needs a little bit refinement. Okay, so
is it not a modality you're referring to, or
it's not modality because it's not modality because Jesus Christ, the Nazarene of Galilee, is a job description. It's not a person. Anyone who did that perfectly would be that person, but only one can ever do it perfectly. Yes, they're hand selected, and yes, it's cherry picking and setting the whole thing up, and the whole thing's set up for our success. But just the same, it's a very thorough job description, is what it is.
Well, sure, but it could still be a mode of that type of entity, right? I mean, there can be.
It could be,
like
but that's not.
Well, how would you distinguish?
But it's not necessary. It's not any more necessary than to say I'm a plumber. My son became a plumber. We're thereby the same person.
Well, but that's my point, right? Like, let's say, like I know somebody, like that's. Why would I make the distinction of trying to separate those two identities instead of referring to them as just different aspects of like an overall, like of some like overall type of overall kind of entity? Yeah, exactly.
Well, first there's the logical problem of the Trinity, which I think holds water. There's that. There's the fact of all three, Holy Spirit, Father, and Son, being at the baptism. There's that. There's the prayer at Gethsemane. There's that. So I don't think it's the same person exact, even though if all characters. Oh, and by the way, I don't think that a Christian can hold the Trinity anyway, because the Bible already uses the term the Father to mean God, but then you have messengers who are not the Father, who do show up and speak for God and act as God. So what's that? A quadrinity? I don't know how to even go into something like that.
I have an idea, but we can talk about
I think instead what we're seeing here is the Father does a thing, and his Son imitates him. I'm doing as I see my Father do before me, that sort of thing. Because he's got the story of his Father in his hand called the Bible. And he's reading it and getting instruction and guidance from that, not just from prayer.
Sounds like
would you see it conceivable as that, like, given that God is an extremely powerful agent, that God could create a vessel, like, to appeal to humans in a way that they recognize, like, their own nature. So creating himself as a son. Right, because that's, like, much in the same way, like, that the Bible will say, like, God loves all of his children God loves all of his children. The best way in which he could, one would think, to kind of, like, try to solidify that relationship would be to appear or to demonstrate himself in a way that humans recognize.
No,
right?
That's
Being
absolutely no. I can't imagine. I can't imagine an emissary of heaven not seeming very, very human. That would be stupid, right? Like, why would you send something very, very different from us and say, go testify to these people that are very different from you? That wouldn't make sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So for practical application, yes, I can totally see doing it that way. Is it exactly the same being? Well, there's a logical problem with it being exactly the same being, including the things that I already mentioned.
And I think the common analogy that gets brought up is kind of like the legs of a stool, like,
Sure.
in the sense that they're the same person, but they don't necessarily serve the same function. Like, the role of the Creator and the role of the Son and the role of the Holy Spirit all serve different aspects.
Modalism, I think.
Well,
because it's not one person, it's one God. Is the traditional idea, I believe. 3 persons. Some have a problem with that word persons, but 3 who's, one what. 3 who's, one what.
To me, that gets really weird, though, because especially when you talk about verses where immediately after Jesus is baptized and Jesus prays to the Father, which if he is currently incarnated as, if he currently is God incarnated as the Son, that seems to be kind of paradoxical.
It can work. I mean, that shows there's 3 who's right there, I would say.
Well, that'd be 3 modes, wouldn't it?
There's actually a very simple answer to all of this.
Which is that the Trinity doesn't work. At least
that the Trinity doesn't work. That what's being described is 3 frames in a long piece of film. Okay, that this has been going on and it will continue to go on after we're done on this planet. That the Son does what the Father did, but he becomes also elevated to the position of God in heaven, i.e., he'll be a father. This is the natural order of things anyway. This is how, like, beings actually work. The reason you can claim to be the Father is because you are the Father. And there's nothing wrong with being called the Son when you're the offspring of the Father. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And there's no need for modalism. And I'll tell you what the whole problem is in a really quick summary. God is love. God is spirit. It names the 7 spirits. But it never says that God has personage. But when it talks about the acts of God, the hand and mouthpiece of God, now it has personage in the Father, the Son, and also in lots of angels. But
well, the Bible shouldn't need to state that God has personage, because older, like, even in, like, what is it, Exodus, I think, like, you see God, like, displaying his personality to the Jews and to the Hebrews, clearly showing, like, detest and, like, disapproval of certain things they have, like, take the golden calf example or stuff like that.
Okay, was that Jesus?
No, it was God.
Okay, it was God. Was it the Father?
You would infer that it's God the Father. I mean,
Could it have
God the
been
Father.
an angel?
Not in the
Could it be the
context
angel of God in that context?
You would have to reach for that one because it doesn't. Nothing in the text about like the golden calf example particularly seems to indicate that, like that a spirit or an angel is speaking on the behalf of God.
But
Like,
depending
Hey,
on which
Dennis, if
Christian
I can
I ask,
interrupt,
that could be
I
the
need.
Father or the Son right there.
Could be.
Sorry, forgive me. I need to sign off now, but it's been great and a wonderful time, and I'm going to go to sleep now. So
Okay.
it's been
All
great.
right.
Peace and respect to you all.
Yeah.
And
Cheers, Steve.
cinema.
Thanks
Bye.
a lot. Cheers.
And you guys might notice the branding in the upper right-hand corner here. That is Big Zebra's
BigZebra.com.
actual.com, where he writes funny pieces about reality. And I hope you check it out, and I hope you just laugh your butt off too.
So what are you guys saying about the golden calf thing? I was curious about that. So you're saying
about what? Oh,
the-
what I was saying is that Richard
sorry.
had made a comment, something to the effect of that God doesn't have personality, or at least it doesn't state that directly in the text.
That's what I said. It doesn't have personage.
Personage.
Yes.
Whoa, do you take that to mean like that God doesn't identify as a particular person, or
That there's no physical flesh of God itself.
Oh, sure, yeah, I would agree with that. I thought you
that's
said
what
God
I
as.
said.
I thought you meant that to say like that God doesn't have personality. I'm like, that's a little weird.
Well, there's 4 different personalities described in the Gospels.
Why 4?
Because there's 4 Gospels.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I remember we talked about that a little bit. I think the Lord is a pre-incarnate Christ before he's incarnated. So I take the angel of Yahweh to be Christ. I take even Michael to be Christ, actually.
Actually, that does make me wonder now. The Transfiguration event, right, where it's said that what is it, when Moses is on Mount Sinai and is in the presence of God, that his right, he becomes kind of like imbued like with the Spirit of God, and his like there is a clear like
it's a picture of the second
shine.
It's a picture of the second coming, because right before that there's a chapter break right there, so people miss this. It says that's right after Jesus says, there are some standing here who will not taste death till they see the Son of Man come with power. And then it says, after 6 days, he took them up the mountain. Peter, John, the beloved, and James or whatever. And then they take him up the mountain, and then they're suddenly struck, and they see Moses and Elijah, who were the two, like one taken to heaven alive, and one died and was resurrected according to Jewish history or whatever. It's in the assumption of Moses. It's not in the Bible, but you can kind of figure this out from Scripture. And then Christ is glorified, the Word of God, and there's a very meaningful reason for that. That's a really big type. I'd say it's a type of the second coming because Christ comes in his power, and Moses represents, I would say, those who had died and are resurrected, and then Elijah represents those who are alive and remain at the coming.
I mean, you guys don't have to accept this, but all of these problems are solved by the story being about end times. That is, after the 6th day, the 6th day of creation, begins the Sabbath, the 7th day.
So I do have a question as well, because there's a third character that's kind of similar to that. Jamie, how do you interpret the character of Enoch in the Bible?
Who'd you ask? Your mic cut out.
Jamie.
Oh, so yeah, he would be the third besides Christ, of course, that's explicitly listed as taken to heaven, is how I look at it. Without seeing death, although Moses saw death, because I won't bring that subject up. I don't think people go to heaven when they die, but except for these 3 explicit mentions.
To me, that's really interesting how the Bible does mention that there are those that apparently, according to the eyes of God, where it appears like that salvation doesn't need apply to them, like where there's some kind of
it is curious
situation where they're redeemed before the Son of Man is sent to the world to die for sin.
Yeah, it just says Enoch walked with God, and then he was gone, for God took him. So he's the oldest man in the Bible, but the oldest man who ever lived and died is Methuselah.
Yeah, I just wanted to raise that question since we were on the topic of Moses and Elijah.
some people try to deny that that's what the text says about those three. They would say like Moses is dead because it's not in scripture. Elijah was just taken to heaven. We know he didn't go to like where God is. It just meant up into the sky because he wrote a letter so much longer. I know it's
Where
dumb.
Did he go to?
Yeah, the Bible makes it pretty clear about
what goes up must come down.
Yeah, the Bible makes it pretty clear about what happens to those three.
I think so, yeah.
I would argue that the amount of transfiguration and the interpretation I gave, considering the context and all that, and then what we see, that kind of proves in my mind that these were taken to heaven, because that's what they're later typed as in this position here. Like, I think it actually happened, of course, but as a believer, but I think God set that up. It's like there are ways to confirm theology in the Bible like that, in my opinion. And so, but Enoch is curious. Some people will try to say, well, this proves there's a pre-tribulation rapture, right? Because he's taken before the flood comes, kind of thing. But I don't buy that. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I would just, I mean, if I were wanting like to play devil's advocate, I would just use that as an argument for pluralism, in the sense that like one of the tenets of Christian doctrine is that salvation is the only means of redemption, the only means to go to heaven. However, other places in the Bible, like we were just discussing, it appears to be the case that, like even in the realm of Christian theology, that doesn't necessarily, like there are exceptions to that. Yeah,
I would agree that that's possible. But I think there are exceptions, and you can make arguments like, well, God's outside of time or whatever, and so they haven't been in heaven yet, but they're like, outside the time domain or something, only to appear in that scene at the Mount. I've heard people try to make that argument, or because usually people that deny it believe what I believe about soul sleep or whatever, so that they want to deny that because it seems to contradict that clear teaching in Scripture, which I would agree with them on. It's clear, but that I would just say, well, and then these are exceptions. They were taken alive bodily to heaven.
Right. I mean, I think the implication to that type of thing, or for a person arguing pluralism, is that salvation is non-essential. Like it's not the only path to heaven. And that's evidenced even by like the scriptures themselves.
Well, I think they were all looking forward to the cross. Forward, we look back, and the sacrifices were to hold them in trust of God, with God. And so that's how I look at it anyway. Richard, I'm sorry to keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's just...
You guys keep going.
No, I mean, I get it. I mean, it's just the point I would push back on is even if they were looking forward to the cross, they couldn't have had their sins atoned because there was not yet like that sacrifice put in place for them to be reconciled. Right.
Because it's and so and a lot of this depends on how you interpret like Sheol and because or Ecclesiastes.
Sheol and Baal and Gehenna.
Yeah, that wasn't necessarily a concept in the Old Testament per se, but people argue about what that actually even means. That it could mean the valley of the sons of Hinnom, or it could mean have to do with the mountain of God. There's a kind of a new thing that's going around.
Well, yeah, it's weird. I mean, it's weird because it pops up in I think it's the book of Revelation where it mentions like that the lake of fire is destroyed or something about that.
It says death and hell.
Yep. That's a really good proof that because I'm an annihilationist too, conditional immortality, and I believe dead people aren't alive. Go figure, right?
Yeah, really.
No,
we haven't quite got to Frankenstein yet, or Frankenstein for those who have.
Yeah, I mean the whole bodily resurrection thing, and people waking from their graves in the dust, and they'll hear his voice from the grave, and that sort of language, and that's the other thing I was going to mention is when Paul describes Christ's return to earth for his bride, right? There's a whole theme of bridegroom, and you don't sneak your bride home, and you come back for her, and there's a watch, the bridesmaids in the night watching. To me, that proves without a shadow of a doubt that souls aren't in heaven when they die, because why would he come back for his bride if they were already with him? Oh, I'm just coming back for her body, I guess you could say. But anyways, it says the voice of the archangel, that's Michael, raises the dead. So Christ descends. He's the one who resurrects people. That's why one of the main reasons I take that to mean, because Michael just means the one who is like God. But I think Christ is actually pre-existing and the creator. I don't think he's created or anything, but I think there's enough clues to suggest that he's basically the angel of the Lord or the angel of Yahweh and Michael are the same angel, I think.
Yeah, I do think it's really interesting how the Bible does implicitly reference and explicitly as well that there being that in addition to like the kind of earthly objects that God created, like animals and humans and plants and what have you, that there also is that there also are things like that are not contemporaneous necessarily, but contemporaneous with him, like angels and things of that nature. And it's not clear necessarily if those things were also created during the creation week, or if those things always were present with God. Like if there's some kind of like pre-chronology before the events of Genesis occur.
It's confusing because of the development of the word angel that we say today in English. So like in the Hebrew, it's malach, which can or does mean messenger, but oftentimes they're heavenly messengers. So it gets confused because of kind of the way we use it to like mean like divine being. But I would argue that like Elohim is more of a word for like the plurality of divine beings from the divine realm, which could mean God or could mean any entity from there. But angel's just messenger. But in some contexts in the Greek or the New Testament, it does mean divine being, or it's used that way. So it can make it really confusing, but it doesn't have to mean, so that would mean you're a created being, right?
Yeah.
But not necessarily. It could just mean you're a messenger, because Jesus is called a messenger. He is the lead messenger that God sends.
Yeah, and I think to verify your point, I think that adds confusion, because now if you have two options to choose between, like in this question of in what cases does the word angel refer to an actual, or our conception of an angel being this kind of like divine object or something like that, and when does it refer to like something synonymous to that of a prophet,
exactly,
right, or a messenger.
Yeah, and that's it. But the thing that makes it even worse is like in Hebrews, like it's literally used as to mean a created. He was made a little lower than the angels, things like that, right? Or to which of the angels did I say today I've begotten you? And so that makes it seem as though, well, in the New Testament, angel has to mean a created being, but I still would say that's
and then you get into the issue.
Sorry, yep.
Well, yeah, and then it goes.
Time out, guys. I'm loving the conversation. I want to pick it back up, but someone in the chat just referred to Morning Star as Satan.
Oh.
Anybody want to address that besides me?
Go ahead, Richard.
What's that?
I said.
No, you go ahead.
Yep, that's what I meant. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so I've heard this kind of idea several times. And soon what normally follows this is the name of Jesus as the bright and morning star is the same as the name of Lucifer, the morning star. And I've heard those kinds of ideas several times. Cryptomeria, I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but there are logical problems with Lucifer being Satan. For instance, if Lucifer, or Azazel in another language, falls with the temptation of women on this earth in chapter 6 of Genesis, 6 is well after in indicated time frame. It's well after the Garden of Eden. So in order that Satan and Lucifer be the same being, what you need to happen is Lucifer was good and in heaven. Then he became not good for the Garden of Eden. Then he became good again, entered back into heaven, and then fell for chapter 6 with the Nephilim and sexy ladies. Okay, so that's like saying God allows someone to flip-flop back and forth between being good and evil, and they can just come and go out of heaven as they like.
Oh, this inadvertently brings up the whole community drama regarding the whole OSAS.
Yeah, exactly. That's the first thought I had.
There is no need for an OSAS argument. There is just no need. It's all a misunderstanding.
No, I know. I'm not going to bring it there. It's like within some of the Christian community, it's been a topic that's that's been entertaining to watch. needless
when
to
you're
say.
when you're standing on the glass floor under God's throne, looking down at the earth being destroyed, you'll know you made it.
There we go.
I agree. We will be on it.
That's a sure thing.
But I mean, that also brings up like the related question of like is Satan redeemable? Which
Is
most
Satan
Christians will
redeemable?
answer.
Or are you asking is Lucifer or Satan redeemable? Which one?
Well, usually they're referred to as the same type of being.
Oftentimes, I think that's logically impossible, but yeah, they say
he was
that.
created Lucifer, and he became Satan by way of his obsessiveness with his own pride and beauty. That's what it says. You were made perfect.
Was Lucifer the one in the Garden of Eden or not, Jamie?
I believe so, but I do understand that the word Lucifer is a translational issue, and that so when real briefly, just so I can get on the same page as you and you understand where I'm coming from. So I do think the context of that morning star there is the entity known as Satan, who is, I would also say, is the entity that was previously known as what we call Lucifer, but which is just light bearer, which is the same source of morning star, day star. That's literally just a different translation of the idea of the of being an angel, right? The sons of God shouted for joy. So there's like a connection there, even in the in the Hebrew, I think so. So yes, in certain verses, the morning star, and then the reason some translations mess this up, and like, well, it says day star here, that's supposed to be Jesus, because people are used to their KJV, which had it a very particular way. The verse applied to Jesus, they translated a day star, and the one that we understand is pertaining to the power behind the Prince of Tyre, or the one, Satan, quote unquote. That was another particular word. People got used to that. But the etymology of that word for that translation is essentially just saying a shining one, which is like an angel, like which Satan is in the garden. He's Nakash means shining one. It means that's the verb. The snake is the noun, and divination is the verb. Anyways, that's my position.
So I mean, I'll take the most broad interpretation that I can. So there is the question, I think at least like non-believers kind of have, or some don't, some do, some don't, of like, is Lucifer, now Satan, a being that is redeemable? Which most Christians will answer no to that question.
Yeah, I think most would answer no.
Ezekiel 28.
But I don't think I can associate Lucifer as Satan, or in the opposite order, that Satan is Lucifer. And I don't even know how a person can, unless they're doing time traveling, then it's possible.
Well, do you think that Satan is redeemable in that case, since you're wanting to?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
I think that both Satan and the beast of Satan are not redeemable.
Well, Lucifer isn't his name per se from the text. It's just a historical, anomaly or whatever. But it means Lucifer means light bearer, which means he was an angel. And then that entity is said to have been perfect, created perfect, the first, and with pipes and timbrels, in the midst of you or whatever. But you were found guilty because of your iniquity. You were in the garden of God, all that. And then it gives the whole rundown. And, like Paul says, I think it's Paul or Peter says, in the New Testament, that no wonder, for even, they're angels of light, right? Masquerading as, messengers of God or whatever. And so I would argue that. So Lucifer isn't even really a being or a name that was used like in the actual timeline per se. It's like our historical label because of the way we translated the Latin, right?
Sure.
But he was an angel, and it's this angel that seems to be Satan. That's what I would say.
Well,
and if you read
in Enoch, he's called Azazel or Azazel, depending on how you want to pronounce that. Now that's an actual name.
Yeah, Beelzebub.
Okay. You said Azazel or Beelzebub?
Yeah. Or Azazel. I don't know how you want to pronounce it, but it's spelled
okay. Oh yeah.
yeah,
Azazel, right? That's in Leviticus 16.
Or Yel, yeah.
Yeah, Leviticus 16. It's so the King James translators chose to translate Azazel as scapegoat, because it was the name of the goat in Hebrew. And you can argue whether it's a proper name in that context, right? But it's there's two goats. The first goat was, I think it was Dalid, and then word for the goat for Yahweh. And then that was the one that was sacrificed in the temple for the high priest, right? Who went into the most holy place to do the sacrifice. And then after he came out at the end of the festival on the Day of Atonement, they took the second goat, which was the goat Dalid Azazel, or the goat for Azazel, who was also known in common literature as the leader of the demons that came down and corrupted mankind in Genesis 6, which is also in other places in other writings, also considered to be the same entity as Satan. I've been studying this recently. This
is everything you just said is exactly why I think that there's no redemption for Satan, and there is hitting the reset button for Lucifer. That he is part of those imprisoned awaiting the execution of the judgment that comes at the end of this earth. And so that is why angels are in the pit with Satan as the earth collapses around them. Sharp rocks falling on their heads, all that sort of thing. Michael having locked the door, they can't escape.
Yeah, that's basically how I take it too. Although I think Satan is quote unquote free at the moment, and he's taken to the bottomless pit at the day of the Lord, I would say. But it's pretty much the same thing. I think. Is that right?
That's biblically accurate. Yeah, that's biblically accurate. What do you make, or either of you, or if you wanted to go back to the other topic, or if you find this more interesting, what do you think of the idea of Satan being, I'll say, reconstituted after 1,000 years?
I don't think that works, because Revelation 20, basically, if you want to look at it, but it's like he seems to be, in some way he's chained, which I think is like a circumstantial situation. You could say he's in prison or something in the underworld or something, but I think it's literally on the earth all by himself, essentially, is what I think. A destroyed earth that's destroyed at Christ's coming. And the 1,000 years thing is that it says he's released, right? And then and he gathers up all the non-saints, right? Because they were already glorified at the beginning of the 1,000 years. At this point, he suddenly has access to all the damned people that were not risen at Christ's coming. And then so it says he gathers them from the four winds, and then they encompass the city. And I would argue that that's the city coming down out of heaven, right? The New Jerusalem. And that's when we see the execution from Ezekiel 28 that's promised there. And the language in Revelations 18 and 19 about the beast, the false prophet, and all that, sure, they're thrown in there. And I think this is where that's commenced, right? The sea gave up the dead. So I believe that that's when the non-righteous people are resurrected back to life, and then Satan gathers them all to attack the holy city that's coming down out of heaven, which is Christ and his bride. It says that it's the New Jerusalem adorned for for the groomsmen, or whatever is the language. So it sounds to me like the marriage supper has occurred, and so it's coming back, and maybe that's why these dead people that are not saved are raised back up, and Satan's released from his quote unquote prison, because and so that seems to be when they try to attack the city, Christ destroys them, and that seems to be which lines up with the destruction of Satan in like Isaiah or Ezekiel 28. So that seems problematic.
No, it's not problematic. Everything's fine. It's what you're thinking. We'll talk about it. Immutable, you got anything on that?
No, this isn't something I'm well read on, so I'll have to let you guys discuss it.
No, I'm about ready to close this up. Actually, I'm a little tired, and I haven't eaten today, and I'm a little hungry, and I want a cigarette after 2 hours of streaming.
There we go.
I'm sorry I blabber so much, dude.
It's not blabbering. You get on a train of thought, and you want to express every associated thought to that set of tracks. It's absolutely fine. I have no problem with it. The only problem I have with it is when we don't really have time to address everything. And the answer to that is dedicated shows. That's the answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some topics too, like especially if you get into debates about the Trinity, where it's just that almost needs to be like a whole study or show of its own, because that topic is there's some people that like think there's good arguments for it, and I'm not that familiar with their arguments, like as for why they believe like the Trinity is true or logically consistent. But I'd be willing to hear it out.
Every time I've heard, go ahead.
Okay, historically, I've been studying this recently too. It seems to me historically the church kind of developed it from like what does Scripture say, and then like what can we affirm or not, and then they took different positions and they declared some heresy because they just did not seem to fit logically with what all the Scriptures were saying, and so it was kind of honed down to like what was appropriate, and that's why it's so specific and careful. You can study that. You can just go to Wikipedia and start with like the Arians, and then you go from like blue word to blue word, and you can kind of get a picture of the history quickly with a general overview. But that's it.
It's kind of interesting in that case, though, that the Trinitarian view is kind of like the most mainstream version of it, because it doesn't seem, at least on first glance, it doesn't seem very logical.
I think it's ignoring parts of the text that are obvious. I mean,
yeah, I think so too.
All heard me say this, but the promises that are realized in the 24 elders are promises above the population made only to Jesus Christ. And what makes us think that if we're a good thing to do, quote unquote, a very good thing, if this earth is a very good thing, why would God only do it once? Isn't that like limiting God to one of these and saying, well, it's a good thing, but he'd never do it twice? It doesn't even make sense to me.
Yeah, I suspect you're right. I suspect there are other planets. The question is, do they always have to fall or not? And so could there be other planets in this actual universe or even other universes? And if there are,
yeah, it's interesting because I would actually say that yes, like that if you read Genesis, I think the only interpretation like that you can get from it, like by reading it clearly and by like actually committing to the text, is that like the only choice like to really push the narrative forward was for man to fall.
I think actually there's good justification for the problem of evil. As soon as I say human nature continues into heaven, and without some portion of the population having seen real suffering, they wouldn't know how to resist as well in that future utopian society. So some small percentage of us need to suffer.
See, I would just want to say I wouldn't want to step back from the say that like it was a necessity, because I think that then that suggests that the only way God's good attributes could be expressed would be in the light of evil, which seems to be problematic for the notion of good and then evil being the privation of the good. So but I mean, I get the rub there. I think it's reasonable, but I think it causes other philosophical problems. But I think it's possible.
No. I mean, I think
the difference is what you just said is God limited. What I just said was Satan is a sneaky bastard.
Yeah, I don't deny. I don't deny that there are other interpretations you can take in regards to the Genesis account and towards like what it says about the fall. But I think probably the most problematic issue there is like, and I don't want to get into it now because obviously Richard has expressed that he wants to like bring this to a close.
Enough, yeah.
But I think the thing that really causes problems is the whole is the tree of knowledge, itself, and how that relates to the fall and like the pre-fallen state of Adam and Eve.
I'll agree with you that this last thing I'll say, and thank you for having me, Richard. I would just say there's no doubt. I totally agree with you that I would say you can derive from the text in Genesis, literally before man's created, that God knew that they would fall. That's for sure. That
yeah,
much,
and I would take a stronger approach into saying not only did God know, but number one, that was the only possible option that could have occurred, and number two, given the pre-fallen state, that action was perfectly justified.
Guys, email me.
But that's a very
you guys
different
just
conversation.
touched on five. You guys just touched on 5 amazing conversations we could have.
Yeah, I mean, I think the book of Genesis in that regard is like really. I agree with a lot of people, especially kind of arguing like in this creation evolution community that the book of Genesis is probably one of the most interesting books of the Bible, and especially kind of like how you interpret like the first few chapters of Genesis in regards to the creation, and particularly like the fall event, is kind of crucial for how the rest of doctrine develops.
Yeah, Genesis 1 through 11. I said that'd be the last thing I said. See Jordan Peterson's thing on it, though. Definitely.
We could go all night. We're just going to wrap it up and promise each other another
on that
day,
note.
Okay? Let's just promise each other another day. Thanks for stopping in, guys. I really appreciate it. Peace and respect to you all.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Side chat.
Email me.
It's always a joy. It's always a lot of fun having you guys. What did you say, Jamie? I talked over you.
No, I interrupted you. As I said, email me and we'll set it up, or I'll email you.
Let's do that.
And I enjoyed the conversation with Immutable. Thanks for that.
No problem.
I'd like to talk to you again. That was fun.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's a few people have expressed the view like that they want to see me kind of like discuss more theology, because I saw it talk mostly about science. But
yeah, I'll check out your channel. I know I've seen your channel before, but I have a channel too.
I kind of prefer my role as a wanderer in this community. I just like to kind of strike up chats with people, mostly because my view is that I don't want people really kind of like trying to inspect my beliefs overly much, because I think that takes away from the authenticity of a conversation.
That's
fair. It's just better for me when conversations are developed naturally. And if you want to talk about like my views on ethics or stuff like that, then just ask what my views are, what my arguments are, and I'll give them.
I predict that you're an atheist, but I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of even in atheist circles, I have issues kind of with the way atheism like is defined, like the whole lacktheist thing. But for all intents and purposes, yeah, I don't believe a God exists.
You're like Steve McRae, so that tells you anything. All right, guys, see ya.
All right, take care.
Okay, so that's 6 great conversations. Thanks a lot, guys. We're never going to finish up this thing.
I know.
Peace and respect to you all. Till next time, have peace in your lives. And I want you all to know that I truly do look forward to the day that we're all great friends. Good night.